Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky, game 2 tonight in Memphis. And to break it all down, we've got the great Howard Beck. That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. It's always going to be free. It's never going to be behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to watch the show and gaze upon the visage of the great Howard Beck, who joins us today. Look at that face, joining us from under a bridge on location, like a troll of some sort, living under a bridge. This is exciting because if people don't realize this, Howard is going to be a big part of the network through the playoffs, adding his insight, his expertise. And of course, we've known Howard for years, and he's been kind enough to come on our shows for a long time. So this is like normal for us, but very exciting.
We didn't need the network to make this happen.
No. Although I will say the last time we had Howard on, it had to be done through a publicist or a PR person or something.
That is true.
That wasn't my idea, by the way.
Mr. Beck will come on your show, but he says no direct eye contact.
It was very much like when that episode of Seinfeld when Kramer had his intern for Kramerica Industries. This was like Beckica Industries.
I need an intern to handle all this for me now. Gentlemen, great to see you again. My favorite podcasting brothers, the only brothers podcasting that I know, frankly. But even if there were others out there, you would still be at the top of my list.
Thank you.
The Sklar brothers taking strays. They didn't expect this.
They've never had me on, so screw those guys.
They're actually good guys. I've
sure
known
they are,
Randy and Jason since I was little. But
do want to let people know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So game 2 is tonight. Still waiting to find out whether or not Ja Morant is going to be available, whether or not he'll be healthy enough to be useful, even if he does try to play. Before we dig too much into what to expect for tonight, and I also actually want to ask you a couple questions, Howard, about the whole DPOY thing and the perception of Anthony Davis around the league right now. What do you think of game 1? Because that fourth quarter was special in a lot of ways, particularly given who led the Lakers down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, listen, given all of the different iterations of the Lakers this season and all of the justifiable doubts, concerns, freakouts, panics, whatever, this was almost best case scenario. Not just that they're winning game 1, stealing home court advantage, but that they're doing it with LeBron and Anthony Davis as their third and fourth leading scorers. And look, even if you were the most optimistic, greatest believer in Austin Reaves on earth, and you said, well, he's going to give us 23 points, great. You still could not have anticipated the Rui Hachimura 29-point explosion, which was just like every shot he made, it seemed like I can't remember who the announcing crew, but the surprise just kept growing. Like, there's another one. Oh wow, he can do this. Listen, like these are guys with basically no playoff experience besides. And so if you were even in this better version of the Lakers, the post-trade deadline version of them, where you thought, oh, you know what, it's coming into focus. The pieces fit a little better now. I can see some potential here. You would still, or I would still, at least at some point coming into this go, you know what? If I had a concern, it's they haven't had a ton of time together. Oh, and by the way, outside of LeBron James and Anthony Davis, most of these guys have little to no playoff experience. And playing with LeBron is a different kind of thing than playing with any other star. Mm-hmm. And these are all things that just can take time. And so, I mean, again, that was best case scenario for them. Doesn't mean it's their ceiling by any stretch. I'm just saying they won a game where LeBron didn't have to play a ton of minutes, where LeBron didn't have to expend himself in any kind of way that would make you worried about his stamina for the series. He didn't even have that great of a game by LeBron standards, and they still won. So really great signs. And I think these are replicatable things too, right? Like Hachimura can score. Hachimura can shoot. We know that. Austin Reaves can score and do a lot of other things. So I don't think this is some like anomaly where you think, oh, they're never going to repeat that. Like, no, these are replicatable things.
I actually wanted to ask you, you just mentioned Austin Reaves. As somebody who's on the East Coast, with that East Coast bias, and also
I'm all about bias.
There's also a different slate of games that it's nothing else easier for you to watch, and you get a lot of perspective on the league from, the Eastern Conference. Do you think the rest of the league has caught up to / bought into Austin Reaves like as a presence at this point? Because he's theoretically the third part of a big three if the Lakers are looking to make a run. I mean, it's either him or D'Angelo Russell, but depending on the day, Reaves could be that guy.
I continue to just be amazed and wowed by the graphics on this podcast. I love it. I hope people watch instead.
Have you seen this? This is what Austin Reaves looked like at the beginning of the year, and he's played so well that they went back into the game and fixed him. So,
is that seriously what he looks like?
It absolutely.
This is Austin Reaves before.
that looks like young Vlade or something.
Yes, it looks like Vlade, or as I say, like a wheelman for part of a heist crew.
For a heist crew.
But no, they fixed him.
It's incredible. Yeah, the second Austin looks much more Austin-esque. So it's killing me. I love it. All the podcasts need to do this. This should be a requirement.
Look, Howard, you make fun of our graphics, but the budget is pretty much going to get Howard Beck. So we don't have a lot left over for things like this. So this is what Austin Reaves looks like.
If I have to give back a little of the stipend to fund more graphics, I will do it in a heartbeat.
Thank you.
I don't think that the league has to catch on to a guy in that respect. I don't mean to get semantical here. It's more that so every team has two different kinds of scouts. You have the advanced scouts who are going to games to feed information back immediately on sets and rotations and everything else. And then you've got the scouts who are the player personnel guys who are also making the rounds, who are looking at guys not so much for the sets and X's and O's to pass along, but are scouting them constantly to get their homework done about free agency, trade possibilities. And I bring that up just to partially let your audience understand this is how the information chain works, and it's also how the gossip chain works, because these are the people that we talk to as reporters. And the personnel folks who are making the rounds, they see these guys all the time, right? So you go from Austin Reaves' curiosity to Austin Reaves' breakout player who has everybody's attention pretty quickly in this league. All of which is to say that when I surveyed the landscape this morning, just to kind of get a feel from people, so what's the market look like? To your question, how much are they tuned in? How much have they discovered him, even despite our East Coast bias, perhaps? Even the East Coast personnel people are fairly impressed. The figure that I heard most often was somewhere in the 17 million a year range. Somebody even said 17 to 20 million a year. Somebody said 13 to 14. And then when I said, okay, but what about what he's actually got? I said, that may be what you want to pay him, but what about what they might actually have to pay him? And they said, yeah, probably more like 17.
I'm in my head. I'm still thinking about this whole batch of people in November who describe themselves, no judgment, as Austin Reaves curious.
Yeah, they were Austin curious, and now they're
fully committed, right?
Austin engaged. I don't know.
Whatever the next step is that doesn't get us in trouble.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say we don't need to go too far down this path.
Right.
No, people are definitely impressed. If I heard one concern, it was I'm not sure if the shooting is sustainable. Maybe he's a little over his skis on that aspect of it. But you never know. The funny thing about shooting, if you talk to the analytics guys with 3-point shooting in particular, somebody will be a career 32% 3-point shooter, and then one year they come out and they shoot 37, 38%, and you go, oh, he fixed his shot, or he figured something out, or he's got a better rhythm, or this is the new version of him. And the analytics guys will tell you that it takes more than one season to kind of normalize. And like if the one really good season of 3-point shooting is the outlier, and we don't have enough track record of Austin Reaves in the NBA to really judge this, but if you've got one outstanding season, that might be the outlier. Like just having a full 82 game season of shooting 38% from three, if you had a career of 32% prior to that, doesn't mean that you're necessarily now a 38% shooter. Anyway, the things that are sustainable, right? Like he plays his ass off, good passer, improving passer, I think, defends hard, and just seems to be the kind of guy who fits in well with stars, right? Everybody needs this. Like, ask some of the teams that don't have, or ask the Lakers who didn't have a, good enough supporting cast at times. It's really important to have guys who are ball movers / defenders / shooters who can keep defenses honest when you have stars.
Lots of stuff that we want to keep getting into regarding game 2, regarding the future of the Lakers, regarding Anthony Davis, over the course of this episode. And we will get to all of that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Ultimate Pro Basketball GM, and it's the coolest game I've played in a while. I've always thought that I could be a great real-life NBA GM. I talk on this podcast a lot like I could do it, and as it turns out, it's not always that easy. Apologies to Rob Pelinka and apologies
as
to
it
Mitch
turns
Kupchak.
out.
Yeah, although it should be noted, I would have never traded for Russell Westbrook or signed Luol Deng. Anyway, if you've ever fantasized about owning your own basketball franchise, go download Ultimate Pro Basketball GM right now. The game allows you to manage every strategic aspect of a franchise, dealing with the challenging personalities of players and coaches, hiring the right staff, trading players, training players, making draft picks, navigating your franchise through free agency, all the ups and downs of a season, the draft. Plus, you can talk trash to your friends while playing the game like all the Locked On hosts do with our team. I run the Los Angeles Knights under the pseudonym Chaz Bartender. Ultimate Pro Basketball GM is completely free, playable offline. You can play it on the go whenever you want, however you want. And Locked On Lakers listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. Download the game. Go to probasketballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up on the app stores. Again, that is probasketballgm.com. Ultimate Pro Basketball GM. Start your dynasty today.
All right, so Howard, you kind of alluded to this earlier, and by the way, I agree with you. I think Austin Reaves, the conversation for another day, but I think the trickiest part about Austin Reaves' free agency is I think at this point everybody understands the Lakers are going to match pretty much anything that anybody gives him. But the Lakers are limited in what they can actually offer. So Reaves is going to be waiting for someone to give him more money, but they may not want to, I guess, other than to just make the Lakers have to pay more.
It's hard to game these things out. I do think it is, as you guys brought up, there is the awkward aspect of this where the Lakers can pay him whatever is required, whether it's what they want to offer or whether it's matching what somebody else does because he's restricted, you can match, fine. That they can't actually offer the amount that the other teams can offer is the awkward part. But that'll be understood. Austin Reaves and his agent they'll have had that conversation with them. Everybody will be on the same page of this. And I'm sure the Lakers will say, I would think they would say, we absolutely want you back. Here's the most we can offer by rule. You can get more out there. If you do, and you get that, we'll be happy to match it. We're bringing you back regardless. Like that's the conversation you would think they would have. But we shouldn't ever assume too much given that they've lost a few other guys that you thought were definitely going to stay.
If they do this again,
and the whole league knows this, right? So I think everybody's kind of like, if anybody does want to kind of stick it to the Lakers, whether they're interested in signing Austin Reaves to, 4 years, $85 million or not, like they know that the Lakers are going to be under immense pressure.
So that'll be a huge storyline for the off season. But you had talked about like things that are repeatable. This is always the big conversation between games 1 and 2 of any playoff series. What happened, and is that thing likely to happen again? If you're the Grizzlies, you don't think Rui Hachimura is going to go 11 of 15 and 5 of 6 from 3-point range, but the Lakers are pretty confident, like you say, that okay, but he can still have a good game. Yet it wasn't a miracle that Rui Hachimura played well. When you look at stuff from game from game one, what are you expecting to be able to sustain? What would worry you, if, for the Grizzlies, for example, what would worry you about this? Because they got to win this one.
They have to. Yeah. And we don't know if Ja Morant is playing or not yet. Or what his ability will be. Like, how effective can he be?
Mm-hmm.
You never want to get too, definitive with things like this. I kind of feel like if Ja Morant doesn't play, that the series is over, right? Like, the Lakers themselves would probably not want to cop to that belief, but like, I picked the Lakers to win in 6 before this series started. I already believed they had the better overall group for a lot of different reasons, not least of which is, of course, that Steven Adams and Brandon Clark are missing for the Grizzlies. They don't, that team doesn't score well in the half court. They're a little bit just all over the map. It's kind of a volatile group. I just don't have a lot of trust in the Grizzlies. Respect them, like them, fun team, up and coming team. Not sure they were ready for this. And as I've said many times in recent weeks, the Lakers are not who their record says they are, with all due respect to Bill Parcells. So I thought the Lakers had the advantage in this series regardless. Now that they've stolen home court advantage, now that Ja Morant is at a minimum limited and possibly out, it's hard to see that this won't be a Lakers series victory. But things can still go wrong, right? Jaren Jackson Jr. certainly had a very strong game one, but I would just say if that's the only person doing it much damage, and all right, he's going to score inside, fine. As long as Bane and Brooks and Tyus Jones aren't like raining threes on my head, I'll feel okay about Jaren Jackson going for 30-35 with 12 rebounds and 4 blocks. That's fine. He can have his numbers. I don't think Jaren Jackson Jr. is beating you by himself. And so the other aspect of this, so Tyus Jones steps in. Tyus Jones may be the best backup point guard in the NBA. Tyus Jones is a guy that you absolutely are comfortable plugging in as your starter, but that robs the bench, obviously, of another key player and playmaker. And the strengths of Tyus Jones are, okay, he's going to make open shots. He's going to run the offense well. He's a low turnover and low mistake guy. But he's not going to explode like Ja Morant. Obvious. So sure, like the Grizzlies are a team that better prepared than most, having played 20-something games each of the last 2 seasons without Ja. And Tyus Jones has had a really great record as a fill-in starter. But that's different in the regular season than it is in the playoffs.
Yeah, to your point, Howard, we talked about this on Tuesday's show. The Grizzlies last year in the playoffs against the Warriors, I believe in the first round, they were 1-2 in the games that Ja didn't play after that injury. And, that was with a team with better depth. That had Steven Adams, it had Brandon Clark, it had at the time Kyle Anderson. This team would be losing Ja Morant on top of having inferior depth because of the injuries to Adams and Clark. So I agree with you. They've done very well in the regular season, but just becomes different when you can just scout the hell out of different teams. You mentioned the volatility of the Grizzlies, and this feels apropos as we're all waiting for the league to weigh down a decision after Draymond Green and Stompgate. If you had to pick between one of 3 options, will Dillon Brooks have a dude done lost his mind incident before game 4, after game 4, or no incident at all?
It would be more fun if it was like before game 4, after game 4, at halftime of game 4, on the plane back from game 4. I don't want
to put you in that difficult a position of picking, Howard. I mean, that's some
It's nice that stuff. It's very nice that you gave me the option of maybe he won't have a lost his mind moment.
I want to be fair to Dillon Brooks.
Yeah. No, something's happening. Something's gonna. Something's going to happen. I don't know what it might just be a screaming match with a sports TV personality sitting courtside or something. But there'll be something it strains reality to think that there won't be at least one Dillon Brooks flare up of some kind. And I say that not critically, it's just observationally. Like, I think the analytics would back me up here. The tracking data would say that at some point in the next week, there will be
analytics have ruined the game. But you would agree though, like the Lakers are hoping that if Ja, I don't think anybody wants Ja to, I don't know if the Lakers want to Lakers would rather beat Memphis with Ja than without.
Sure.
But like, if that's the case, if even if it's just for game 2, if Dillon Brooks is sitting there going, all right, I got to fill this void, it's Dillon Brooks time, the Lakers would cheer that on. Like, they would want that, right? The idea that, maybe it works out for him, but you go into any game pretty happy if Dillon Brooks is going to take 23 shots.
Yeah, you're daring him to. You're goading him into it for sure. Now, the danger there is Dillon Brooks might make a couple of those shots and get in a rhythm and keep hitting them. In which case, you're definitely going to have some sort of Dillon Brooks situation to deal with, because he's going to start chirping and gloating and skipping and who knows what else. Some of that. So, I think there's a fine line there between the dare non-shooter or overzealous shooter on opposing team to go ahead and shoot versus, now they got in a rhythm. Like Russ has done that. Rondo has done that. It happens.
Ron Artest hit one of the most iconic threes in Lakers championship history.
Yes.
And that was during a postseason in the Western Conference Finals. Phoenix, part of their game plan was goad Ron Artest into taking threes.
Yeah.
So
there's a danger there.
There is, but overall,
you'll
take it.
Sure.
Yeah. Want to let people know, obviously, we thank everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow on the show, breaking down everything that happens in game 2, a critical, perhaps jawless game 2 filled with lots of Dillon Brooks. So we'll see how that goes. I got to ask you a little bit about Anthony Davis, both in this series and then his perception. We talked a lot for Tuesday's show about him getting not a single point in the DPOY Defensive Player of the Year voting. Really interested in your perception of AD across the league and what this series means for that. So we'll do it all next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Game Time. And years ago, some friends of mine and we went to go see LL Cool J at the Old House of Blues in LA. Really last minute. Didn't know how to get tickets. Tried buying them from a scalper. Turned out they were not actual tickets. We ended up getting into the show anyway through just total random luck. But I said I will never go through that again. And buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful anyway. So that's why I love Game Time. It's the fast, easy way to buy tickets for all the sports and music and comedy shows and theater near you. They got killer deals on last minute tickets, the best price guarantee, and you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun. I love how they offer images of seat views because there's nothing worse than a bad angle. And they got the low price guarantee. They've got the event cancellation protection. They got job loss protection. The Game Time guarantee means you will always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. 110%. That is confidence that they have the best deal. It's the reason they are the fastest growing ticketing app in the country. You buy tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps, the tickets go directly to your phone. Then you're set. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
So Anthony Davis, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, Howard, was a complete monster in game 1. When you look at what he is capable of doing in this series, what the matchups are, and what the importance of it is for him, first, how impressed were you by what he did on that side of the ball? Do you think the Lakers need to figure out a way to get him more involved offensively, or is what they did okay? And he was engaged, at least from our POV, in a big way.
No, I mean, I thought Anthony Davis was fantastic, other than the part where he said, "I can't feel my arm." That was concerning. And look, I mean, that's the story of Anthony Davis's career to a large extent, right? You are either blown away and say, my God, this guy is a one-man wrecking crew at both ends of the court, and he's fantastic. And especially, like, he's not always engaged at that level, right? But the games that he's engaged, and he certainly was in game 1, you're thinking, wow, like, this is the generational talent that everybody was raving about when he first was drafted, and people were talking, like, remember, like, so we've had like only a handful of guys who were the best draft pick since LeBron, or most exciting draft picks. And right now it's Wembanyama, and a few years ago it was Zion. Anthony Davis had that mantle at one point where when he came out, people were like, man, this guy is like, he's going to be a generational type player and a revolutionary type of big man. And he has been a lot of that in the course of his career when he's been healthy and fully engaged and on a team that suits him, right? Still doubts about whether he's leading man material, right? If LeBron retires tomorrow, I think people will start asking all the same old questions, but we know what he's capable of doing. And we saw times this season where the Lakers season was saved, by any number of things at various stages, but in part by Anthony Davis playing like an MVP at times. Again, definitely replicatable, definitely what I would expect. And for the Lakers hope for the rest of this series, hope that stinger has gone away. And yeah, I don't see any reason why we don't see more of the same from him. I'm not saying he's going to be 7 blocks every single game, but I expect a profound impact.
Did you see anything? Do you read anything into sort of his national perception in the total absence of him? Because he played more minutes than Jaren Jackson Jr. this year, fewer games, but more minutes. We went through a lot of reasons we thought perhaps he wasn't in there. But like, what is the level of belief of where he is in the sort of tiers of NBA players from a national media perspective? Because we're always deep in it day to day.
So I'm a voter. Anthony Davis was not on my ballot. Jaren Jackson Jr. was at the top of my ballot. So Laker fans can be as mad at me as everybody else or anybody else wants to be. I don't. It's not a concern, but I will just say I bring that up not because I want to invite hate mail, but because I want to.
You did pick Lakers in 6, Howard. So everyone get off Howard's ass.
Thank you.
I mean, really.
There you go. I certainly don't have it in for them. Listen, here's the thing with Anthony Davis and the Defensive Player of the Year equation, as I saw it. I am one of 100, right? I cannot speak for how the other 99 people processed this. We don't have a 100-person conference call to determine the awards, or a 100-person Zoom, which would probably be like the most nightmarish Zoom you could possibly imagine. 100 media members sitting there yapping at each other. And you thought First Take was bad. Just kidding. When I'm figuring out, and I think a lot of voters view it this way, when you're looking at something like Defensive Player of the Year, a very specific award with a very specific part of the game involved, you are always looking at how the team fared as well. So most people didn't have Draymond Green. My buddy Michael Pina, who I used to work with, who's at the Ringer now, Pina had Draymond Green as his Defensive Player of the Year, top of his ballot. And his case was interesting and well-reasoned. But most of us, I think, probably looked past Draymond as well, who had an outstanding season defensively, because the Warriors themselves were not great. Now, they were great when he was on the court. So if you want to start drilling down further and further and saying, I'm just going to judge the guy based on, we have traditionally looked at some, sliding axis here of how did the player themselves do? And this goes for MVP too. And how did their team do? Where's the impact? I bring that up because the Grizzlies were number 3 overall in defensive efficiency and the Lakers were 12th. And there's a decent gap between them. That's part of it. You mentioned games played. That was certainly part of it. It's a 7-game gap. That's, that's like 9% of the season. You could say, well, Jaren Jackson Jr. playing only 63 games. Yeah, okay, but at some point there's a cutoff. And now the league has decided there will be an official cutoff of 65, which I'm not sure if I agree with them putting it there, but fine. That'll be the rule. We will abide by the rule. We have no choice. But Jaren Jackson Jr. was within 2 games of that, and Anthony Davis was much further from it. You can bring up the minutes. The minutes thing is interesting. People bring this up every year now as we've gotten nerdier and nerdier about the way we analyze players for these awards. Well, okay, this guy played 10 more games, but he actually played 1,000 more minutes. That's actually not mathematically possible. I'm just throwing out random numbers. I'm not a big believer in the using minutes to differentiate.
Tibbs will definitely try to make it happen.
There's a joke you can't make in New York. I don't believe in bringing the minutes into play unless it's really extreme, because it gets confusing, right? If a guy averages 35 minutes on one team and another guy averages 32 minutes on his team, because that's simply the way that they manage their rotation. Maybe he's got a better backup than the other guy does. So we start bringing in minutes. minutes isn't really about availability. It's about how much your team needs to lean on you within a single game. And that might have to do with whether or not you blew the other team out. It might have to do with all kinds of other factors. So the minutes gets noisy to me. So I think this is
I don't mean to pick on your vote.
Yeah, no,
I wouldn't have voted for. Yeah, I wouldn't have voted for AD either. It's just one of these guys, like, he's constantly one of these people you sort of think of as like, he's a potential MVP. I don't think he's going to get any MVP votes this year. And I don't think he should. And he's one of the best defensive players in the NBA, and he didn't get. I mean, it's a weird award. Marcus Smart, who won it last year, didn't get a vote this year. I mean, I doubt he got that much worse from last year to this year. I find the way we look at him, like, I don't think anybody really knows where to put him because of that availability issue, because you're always worried that the time bomb is going to explode at any given moment, like it almost did in game one.
Rest assured, if Anthony Davis had played 10 more games, and especially at the level that he played for much of the season, I think he would have been firmly in the conversation, and he would have been more in the conversation for All NBA as well. And he's going to get shut out there too, I'm sure, because of lack of games. And because we had a particularly strong year at center, especially with Sabonis's emergence with the Kings.
Last question I have for you, Howard. If the Lakers manage to win this series, and whether they go another round or just make a really competitive series out of a second round loss, where would you rank this for season turnarounds? Whether you're talking about for the Lakers or just what you've seen covering the league for a very long time.
It will depend on how far they can extend this to some extent, right? Like, if they get to the conference finals, especially, or beyond, I mean, it will probably blow out of the water any what precedent we could probably come up with. The most current one, the most recent one, is the Celtics a year ago, right? The Celtics were an afterthought at midseason. There are a couple games over 500 early in January or something, and everybody's kind of like, man, they're underachieving. We're writing them off. And then everything clicks into place. Robert Williams III gets healthy, and they take off, and the Celtics go to the finals. So that's actually the one that leapt to mind immediately.
The Lakers would have killed to have spent most of this season a couple games above 500.
Yeah.
They didn't enter above 500 till late March.
That is why this one, and again, sliding scale. If they were to somehow lose in the first round, we'll go, wow, that was a really great recovery. Not quite enough. If they make it to the second round and get smoked by the Kings, which is what it looks like at the moment, it'll be the Kings. Let's say that happened. We'll still say, you know what? Worthwhile to do what they did. Glad they did it. It did save their season from being an utter train wreck and an embarrassment. But yeah, it was probably too little too late. If they get to the conference finals or beyond, we're going to be talking about this as probably the greatest in-season turnaround of all time. Like, there might be a precedent for this somewhere. I don't know it off the top of my head. Somebody who's a little bit more.
This. You got to go back to 2000, the 2004-05 season, the then New Jersey Nets and also the Chicago Bulls. You got to go back that far to find a team that started out 2-10 and finished the season above 500. I think the Lakers may be the only team, or if nothing else, the only team in modern NBA history that started the season 2-10 and made the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard to find precedent for stuff like this because you don't normally have two stars of the caliber of LeBron and Anthony Davis missing as much time as they are, a supporting cast that was as clearly flawed as it was, and then be able to recover from it in season. Like, all of these things have to happen at the same time. Hello again, Austin Reaves.
That's the recovery. That's what the Lakers were at the beginning of the season, and this is the Lakers at the end of the season.
You need another version of that where it's like Westbrook morphing into Rui Hachimura.
This is the league being Austin Reaves curious in November. This is what they think of him now.
I should actually just say, because I think probably at some point earlier this season, we were all sitting here just like, and I certainly was, hitting the Laker front office pretty hard. Phenomenal recovery. I still think they should have fixed the damn thing last summer or in October or November or December. But listen, they earn or deserve all the credit in the world right now.
The reality is, this incarnation, if you like this version of the Lakers, that was actually not available at the start of the season. Like, I mean, you could have maybe gone the Miles Turner, Buddy Hield route, but if you like this,
right.
To be fair to Rob Pelinka, you couldn't have done this at the beginning of the season.
Like, literally speaking, maybe not. Although, listen, some of the guys who were, temporarily parked in Utah were certainly not going to be spending the rest of their careers.
No, but you couldn't have gotten D'Lo, though.
Right. Certain things needed to happen, right? Minnesota needed to have the opportunity to get Mike Conley and to divest themselves. Although I will say there was enough of a data set in Minnesota from the last few years for them to have known that probably there's better options than D'Angelo Russell. So
they'd have to be well run to recognize that right away, though.
Ooh, shots fired. So maybe this exact set of trades wasn't available, and Rui Hachimura may not have been available then too.
I doubt he would have been. The Wizards were trying to secure their 10 seed. That they should have more shots fired. My gosh. Nick Cage is going to run out of bullets in that gun. He never runs out of bullets.
There is still the I believe argument to be made, and I would of course make it, that they should have done something sooner, but better late than never. And the deals that they did make were the right deals for the right kinds of pieces, and it has paid off very well. They deserve all the credit in the world for the recovery. We'll see how far it goes. Like I said, I picked them to come out of the first round. I don't know how I'll pick the second round, whether it's Kings or Warriors, if the Warriors can pick themselves up off the mat now. But I'll say this. I'll leave it on this note. If the Lakers make the second round and lose to Warriors/Kings, Northern California team to be filled in later, to me, one, the trades were still worth it. And sending out the future assets, still worth it. Still the right thing, still the best thing, not just for this past season, because it made it meaningful. Missing the play-in again entirely and missing the playoffs is humiliating and not worthwhile for a team with LeBron James and Anthony Davis on it. And it has set them up. It has set them up better for next season. Besides, and that was the thing. Everybody was like, "Oh no, wait until let Russ come off the books. Don't spend the first future picks." No, sometimes the present and the near future are kind of in the same equation, and this is one of those cases.
He is Howard Beck, and he is a part of our network now through the playoffs, and we are really excited about that. We're going to have him back for the second round and the third round and the fourth round and the fifth round and all of the rounds. Howard will be joining us. Locked on Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to see the show. 15,000 plus subscribers there. Lakers fans, NBA fans, all talking about Game 2, which is tonight. We'll have all of the recaps and the analysis for you on Thursday, and we'll see everyone tomorrow.